The galaxy was quiet, almost too quiet, as the representatives of the Galactic Council gathered in their massive chamber. The atmosphere was tense, thick with anticipation. Every species in the galaxy had a voice in this meeting, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. The Council, the governing body that had ruled over the galaxy for centuries, was about to make one of the most important decisions in its history. The issue on the table was Earth, the small, seemingly insignificant planet in a remote corner of the galaxy. The Council had been debating for months whether or not to exile humanity. For the longest time, Earth had been a backwater world, ignored and forgotten by the more powerful species of the galaxy. The humans had been considered weak, unimportant, and unworthy of any real attention. But now, with a growing sense of fear among the Council members, Earth was becoming a problem. An ancient alien empire, long at war with humanity, had been steadily losing ground. Their fleets were destroyed, their armies scattered, and their capital was on the brink of collapse. Yet the worst part was this: humanity had been at the center of it all. They had resisted the Empire's dominance and stood up against their invaders, time and time again. The once feared Empire was now desperately trying to maintain its grip, but it was clear that Earth had played a major role in their downfall. Now, the galaxy's leaders had a difficult choice to make. Some argued that humanity had to be controlled, isolated, and, if necessary, wiped out before they became too dangerous. Others believed that they should be left alone, free to grow and develop without interference. In the end, the Council decided on exile, a decision that would remove Earth from the galactic stage once and for all. The Council chamber fell silent as the vote began. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy stepped forward to cast their votes. The aliens, with their cold, calculating eyes, stood in perfect harmony, each casting their vote with deliberate precision. The humanoids, tall and thin, wore expressions of indifference. The insectoid beings, their antennae twitching, buzzed quietly in the background, their vote already decided. And the others, strange, monstrous beings with multiple eyes, limbs, and faces, remained still, waiting for their turn. As the final vote approached, the tension in the room grew unbearable. The leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy were ready to stamp their approval on humanity's exile. They would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy, left to fend for themselves. It would be the end of Earth's long struggle. The final representative, a tall, imposing figure with sharp features and deep red skin, stood up. His voice echoed through the chamber as he declared, "The vote is final. Earth's fate is sealed. We will cast them into exile, and they will no longer have a place among us." The room erupted into murmurs and whispers. The decision was made. Humanity would no longer be a part of the galaxy. But just as the final words were spoken, something strange happened. A low hum vibrated through the chamber, a sound that was unfamiliar to anyone present. It was almost like the sound of a distant engine, or the hum of something far, far away. At first, no one paid attention. But as the sound grew louder, the council members began to shift nervously. The representative from the insectoid species narrowed his eyes, sensing something was wrong. The red-skinned alien, still standing, turned his head slightly, his gaze scanning the room. Something was coming, then the lights flickered. The council chamber plunged into darkness for a moment. A murmur of confusion swept through the crowd as the lights slowly returned, brighter than before. But that wasn't the only thing that changed. In the sky above the capital planet, a strange object appeared. At first, it was nothing more than a tiny speck in the distance. But as the seconds ticked by, the object grew larger. It wasn't moving like any other ship the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't part of any known fleet. The figure from the insectoid species stood up abruptly, his antennae twitching in alarm. "What is that?" he demanded, his voice shaking for the first time in centuries. All eyes turned toward the sky as the object grew larger still. The distant speck was now unmistakably a warship. But not just any warship, a massive vessel, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its shape was angular and sharp, unlike the smooth curves and refined designs of the alien ships that filled the galaxy. The dark, jagged structure glowed with a faint blue light, and its enormous engines burned bright enough to light up the surrounding space. The council members gasped. They had never seen a ship like this before. The red-skinned representative's eyes widened in disbelief. He knew what it meant. "Impossible," he muttered. "This can't be happening." The object was no longer just a speck. It was huge, and it was coming straight for the heart of the galaxy, headed directly toward the Council's capital planet. As the warship drew closer, a message flashed across the galactic communication system, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. It was a simple message, one that sent a chill through the Council and every species that watched the transmission. "We're not going anywhere. We will fight." And just like that, everything changed. Earth had arrived not to be exiled, but to make a stand. The Council's decision to exile humanity had been made. But now, it seemed, humanity had other plans. The warship's engines roared to life, and the galaxy waited in terror as it drew nearer, its deadly power unmistakable. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The galaxy's mightiest civilizations stood frozen, watching in awe and dread as the Terran warship descended toward the capital planet of the Galactic Council. It wasn't just a ship, it was an entire force in itself. The sleek, angular vessel was unlike anything seen before. It seemed to cut through space like a jagged knife, its engines glowing a fierce blue that lit up the dark void of the galaxy. There was no mistaking it. This was humanity's answer to the galaxy's attempt to exile them. The Council's capital was a vast, beautiful city, home to the galaxy's highest leaders and most advanced species. Its towering structures gleamed with the light of 1,000 artificial suns, while its spaceports bustled with ships from every corner of the universe. But now everything stood still. Even the usually bustling streets were eerily quiet. People gathered in silence, staring at the sky as the human warship loomed larger and larger. Inside the council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. The representatives, still reeling from the vote they had just cast, now found themselves faced with an unimaginable threat. The tall, red-skinned representative who had spoken earlier stood frozen, his mouth agape, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The leader of the insectoid species, his antennae twitching nervously, had already turned to the monitors, trying to make sense of the ship's trajectory. This is impossible. The red-skinned leader spat, his voice filled with both fury and fear. Where did they get this technology? The insectoid leader, usually composed, hissed in alarm. That ship, no species in the galaxy has the capability to build such a vessel, except for the Terrans. Another representative, a towering figure with pale, almost translucent skin, stepped forward. His eyes glowed faintly, and his long skeletal fingers tapped nervously on the table. We must respond immediately, but it was already too late. The human warship, moving with impossible speed and precision, was upon them. It had crossed the vast distances of space in a matter of hours, something no known technology could explain. Now, as it hovered over the capital planet, the full scope of its power was on display. Its enormous size cast a shadow over the entire city, blocking out the artificial suns, leaving only the cold, distant light of the galaxy to illuminate the warship's dark silhouette. Outside the chamber's windows, the Council's capital city was now just a tiny speck beneath the terrifying presence of the Terran warship. Its sleek, sharp edges glistened ominously, and the deep blue glow from its engines pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship was slowly rotating, revealing more of its jagged structure, a massive, intimidating fortress in the sky. Then, without warning, the ship's weapons powered up. A low hum filled the air, and an energy field crackled around the warship's surface, like the pulse of an ancient beast waking from a deep slumber. The surrounding fleet, which had been hovering on standby, now prepared for action. "We need to make contact with Earth," the skeletal representative said urgently. "We need to understand what this ship is and what they want." If they fire on us, before he could finish, the room shook. A deafening roar filled the air, rattling the walls and knocking several representatives from their seats. The windows of the chamber shuddered as a blast of energy from the Terran warship fired into space, directly toward the approaching alien fleet. The beam struck with the force of a star collapsing in on itself, sending ripples through the fabric of space. The alien ships, which had been hovering nearby, began to scatter, their evasive maneuvers frantic and disorganized. The shockwave from the blast rocked the city below, and a loud crash echoed through the halls of the council building. The gigantic beam of energy had obliterated an entire formation of alien warships, leaving nothing but debris floating in the void. The insectoid leader let out a low, shocked hiss. "They've already attacked." "We weren't ready." The red-skinned representative stood up, his eyes wide with fear. "We've underestimated them. We thought humanity was weak, but they've created something beyond our understanding." The human ship, not content with a single blast, unleashed a barrage of secondary weapons. Energy pulses erupted from its sides, tearing through the fleets that had dared to approach. The alien warships, once the pride of the galaxy, were being dismantled piece by piece. The human warship didn't stop to celebrate. It just kept moving forward, as if to show the galaxy that Earth's strength was not a fluke. It was a new reality. In the chaos of the battle, a message was sent across all communication channels from the human warship. It was simple, direct and cold. "Earth has arrived. No one will force us into exile." The transmission echoed through the galaxy, leaving a chilling silence in its wake. The Council, once confident in their dominance over the galaxy, now found themselves facing a force unlike any they had ever encountered. The alien species they had once believed to be the pinnacle of power were now reeling from the first wave of humanity's onslaught. As the final remnants of the alien fleet drifted away, powerless against the Terran warship's might, the Council's leaders realized the true extent of the threat Earth posed. But just as they began to process the gravity of the situation, a new signal was detected, a signal from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, one that hinted at a new, even greater danger approaching. The galaxy was reeling. The Terran warship had just made its presence known, in a way no one had ever anticipated, shattering the false sense of security that had been built over centuries. The alien fleets, once considered the most formidable forces in the universe, now found themselves at the mercy of humanity's unexpected might. Within the massive council chamber, tension hung like a thick fog. The representatives stood frozen, each processing the horror they had just witnessed. The red-skinned representative, his face darkened with rage and disbelief, clenched his fists tightly. He had never imagined a scenario like this. He had been certain that humanity was nothing more than a nuisance, easily squashed under the heel of the galaxy's true powers. But now, everything had changed. "We cannot let this continue," the red-skinned leader growled, his voice like thunder. "Send word to every fleet. We will strike back before they have a chance to regroup." The other representatives nodded, their faces grim. The insectoid leader's antennae twitched nervously. "If they can destroy our fleets with such ease, what hope do we have in a direct confrontation?" But the Council had no choice. The decision had been made. Humanity would not be allowed to disrupt the balance of the galaxy. They would not be allowed to stand tall as a threat to the established order. Within hours, every major fleet in the galaxy was on the move. Alien ships, ranging from sleek, high-tech vessels to massive warships bristling with weapons, began to gather at key strategic points, each preparing for an all-out assault on the Terran warship. The greatest fleets of the galaxy, spearheaded by the most advanced alien species, were about to converge on the one ship that had shattered the status quo. The red-skinned leader issued a command, and the battle was set in motion. In the distant reaches of space, the Terran warship remained silent, hovering above the shattered remnants of the alien fleet. Humanity's warship, the beacon of their new strength, had only fired a few blasts, but those blasts had made it clear that Earth was no longer a small, unimportant planet. The human warship's colossal shape remained intimidating, its weapons charging and ready for the next move. The warship was powered by technology beyond the understanding of even the most advanced races in the galaxy. Its shields were impenetrable, its weapons devastating, and its crew seemed to know exactly how to use it to maximum effect. The alien fleets, prepared for battle, moved into position. Thousands of ships, their sleek forms cutting through space at breathtaking speeds, converged on the Terran warship. The silence of space was broken by the hum of their engines, the air charged with anticipation. This was going to be the fight of a lifetime. But the Council's forces weren't just worried about the Terran warship. They were also facing a new fear: humanity's cunning. The Terrans weren't just a military force. They had learned to outsmart their enemies, using tactics and ingenuity in ways the Council hadn't even thought possible. The first wave of alien warships advanced, their weapons charging. They fired a barrage of energy beams, and the galaxy watched in horror as the blasts collided with the Terran warship's shields. The explosion lit up the blackness of space, sending shockwaves across the nearby fleets. But as the smoke cleared, the human warship remained unharmed, its shields glowing with an unyielding light. The alien fleets watched, stunned. It was as though their weapons had been nothing more than a gentle breeze against the warship's impenetrable defenses. The alien ships regrouped, firing again and again, each barrage growing more intense. But humanity's warship seemed to be made of something stronger, something unbreakable. The second wave of alien ships, hoping to catch the Terran warship off guard, dove in with their full might, but they were met with something even worse. The Terran warship's cannons opened fire. The blast was so powerful that it cut through the alien ships like a blade through water. A single shot ripped through the front lines of the alien fleet, obliterating entire vessels in an instant. The galaxy watched as the first of the alien ships disintegrated into stardust, scattered across the dark void. The force of the blast caused the remaining fleets to hesitate. They had never faced anything like this before. In the distance, the Council's largest warship, the flagship of the entire fleet, prepared to take the front line. The alien fleet's top generals knew they needed to be strategic. If they didn't, they would be wiped out before they even stood a chance. The insectoid leader, the representative who had originally feared humanity's power, turned to the Council, his eyes wide in disbelief. They're not like us. These humans, they don't fight fair. They don't play by the rules we've set for centuries. We're not prepared for this. We have no choice, the red-skinned leader barked. All fleets converge. We fight or we die. As the alien fleets closed in, the red-skinned leader gave the signal. The final wave of alien ships fired in unison. But humanity's warship wasn't intimidated. It wasn't even phased. The Terran vessel's shields absorbed the blast with ease, and the warship's weapons powered up once more. With a deafening roar, the Terran warship retaliated, its mighty guns firing a second volley that tore through the alien fleet like a storm. The galaxy had barely begun to comprehend the magnitude of the Terran warship's power. But now, a new wave of terror gripped every alien fleet. Humanity's warship wasn't done yet. It was only getting started. The alien fleets, once confident in their superiority, now realized they were facing a force unlike any they had ever encountered. The red-skinned leader stood in front of the massive holographic map of the galaxy, his hand trembling as he pointed at the alien fleets still scattered across space. The invasion was supposed to be swift, but Earth's warship had proved that assumptions were deadly. And now, the Council's ships, whose mighty weapons had once been considered the strongest, were struggling to survive the human onslaught. "Prepare the fleets for the final assault," he growled, his voice cold with fury. "We cannot afford any more mistakes." The insectoid leader, who had once tried to dismiss humanity as a minor nuisance, now stood silent, watching the carnage unfold. The alien ships that had been torn apart by the Terran warship were drifting in space, debris floating everywhere. a grim testament to humanity's strength. "This is not what I imagined," the insectoid muttered, his antennae flickering with anxiety. "We thought we could handle them, but we underestimated their resolve, their ingenuity." Just then, the message arrived. It wasn't from the Terran warship, but from somewhere even more unexpected. A fleet of human vessels, all newly deployed, appeared on the galactic horizon. These were not the gargantuan warships humanity had already displayed, but smaller, faster ships, highly maneuverable, armed to the teeth, and capable of tactical strikes that no one had seen before. As the alien fleet watched in shock, the first of the human ships performed a daring maneuver, slipping through the gaps in the enemy lines and striking at the weakest points of the alien fleet. One by one, smaller fleets of alien warships exploded in flashes of bright light. Torn apart by the precision strikes from the human fleet, the red-skinned leader's face twisted with disbelief as he watched the reports come in. The Terran fleet was tearing through their forces faster than their ships could react. The alien fleets, despite their size and strength, were becoming scattered, disoriented, unable to recover from the devastating onslaught. As the alien fleet staggered, trying to regroup for another assault, a new signal came through the Terran warship's communication system. The voice was cold, emotionless, and chilling. "You cannot stop us. The Earth has only just begun." The Council looked at one another in shock and fear. The humans weren't just defending themselves, they were sending a message. And that message was clear. Earth would no longer be pushed around. But just as the alien fleets regrouped, a new shockwave came from the Terran warship. Something bigger, something darker was coming. The red-skinned leader's eyes widened in horror. "The true warship, it's here," he whispered. "And we're not ready for it." "We can't keep this up," the insectoid leader said, his voice tinged with panic. "Our ships are being picked off one by one. They're everywhere. The humans, how are they doing this?" The red-skinned leader turned, fury boiling in his chest. "It doesn't matter, we will rally. The rest of the fleets are on their way. We just need to hold out long enough." But as the Council's forces regrouped for what they hoped would be the final push, the Terran warship, the one at the center of all this chaos, unleashed its most devastating attack yet. With a booming roar, the massive human warship's cannons charged up once more. The air vibrated as energy built to a breaking point. The energy pulse unleashed from the warship's enormous guns reached out like a force of nature, cutting through the vast emptiness of space and carving a path directly through the heart of the nearest alien fleet. In the blink of an eye, entire swathes of the alien armada were destroyed. Warships the size of cities were torn apart as if they were made of paper. The shockwaves of the blast rippled through space, knocking smaller vessels off course, sending them spiraling toward certain doom. The alien fleets, now reeling from the sudden devastation, struggled to maintain their formation. But just as the last remnants of the alien ships reeled from the shock, a new transmission cut through the chaos. It came from Earth's warship. The same voice as before, cold, detached, and utterly confident. "Retreat will not save you. We have come to take control. This galaxy is ours." The council members, shaken to their core, stared at the message in stunned silence. The reality was becoming clear. Earth wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for dominance. Humanity wasn't interested in exile anymore. They had found the power to claim their place in the galaxy, and they weren't going to stop. The alien leaders could only watch as the human warships cut through their lines, taking down ship after ship. Their fleets, once thought invincible, were falling apart faster than they could react. The Terran warship, still looming overhead, seemed to grow larger with every passing moment, its presence suffocating. "We have to make a final decision," the red-skinned leader muttered, his voice tight with fear. We cannot keep fighting this way. We've lost too much already." The insectoid leader turned sharply, his wings buzzing nervously. "We must do something drastic. If we keep allowing them to destroy us, then we will lose the galaxy. They will destroy everything." Suddenly the screens around them flickered. A new ship appeared on the horizon, a massive new flagship, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was far bigger than the other human warships, and its design was alien to the Council. It looked like something straight out of a nightmare, jagged, dark and pulsating with energy. "What is this?" the red-skinned leader whispered, his face draining of color. "What have they done now?" The insectoid leader hissed, his voice low and fearful. This isn't just a warship. This is something more. I don't think we can stop this." As the new flagship entered the fray, its engines fired with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The human fleet wasn't just fighting, they were winning, and now they were about to bring something even deadlier into play. The alien fleets, already on the brink of collapse, had no idea what they were about to face. As the alien fleet staggered, trying to regroup and mount a defense, the true nature of humanity's warships became ever clearer. Each blast from the Terran vessels tore through the fabric of the alien forces with terrifying precision. The Council, now disorganized and overwhelmed, could no longer deny the reality in front of them. Earth was no longer a helpless planet waiting to be exiled. It was a force to be reckoned with. Inside the command center of the Terran warship, a new set of calculations was being made. Humanity had always been underestimated, and now the galaxy was seeing what the cost of that mistake would be. The humans had come prepared, not only with superior weaponry, but with a knowledge and understanding of alien technology that the galaxy's greatest minds had never expected. Back on the alien homeworld, representatives from the largest galactic empires sat in a cold silence. They had thought they could defeat Earth by sheer force, but as each new wave of attacks from the Terran warship obliterated more of their fleets, panic spread like wildfire among the Council. The warship, how did they build it? The insectoid leader's voice trembled. His species had long been the greatest technological minds in the galaxy, but the humans had outsmarted them at every turn. The red-skinned leader stood, staring at the holographic map of the battlefield. The data was bleak. The alien ships, scattered and broken, had little chance of victory. "It doesn't make sense. We've never seen technology like this. Their ships are not just advanced. They are alien. How could humanity possess something so far beyond us?" An unsettling silence followed. The insectoid leader, his face dark with suspicion, finally spoke again. "Maybe they've been hiding something. Maybe the humans haven't been so innocent after all. What if? What if they were never as helpless as we thought?" The realization hit like a wave. The Council had miscalculated everything. They had assumed that Earth, with its primitive technology and divided nations, could never pose a true threat to the galaxy's great empires. But humanity's secret was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The truth was that Earth had not come up with this power on its own. No, the humans had found it, a hidden legacy buried deep in their planet's history. Long before the Council's rise to power, Earth had forged an alliance with an ancient and nearly forgotten race. This race, unlike any known to the galaxy, had shared their knowledge of weaponry, technology and warfare with humanity in exchange for an oath of secrecy. For centuries, this alliance had been concealed, buried beneath layers of history, hidden even from Earth's own people. As the Terran warships continued to devastate the alien fleets, a flash of information appeared in the Council's command center. The red-skinned leader read it aloud, his voice almost too soft to hear. "The humans. They've been reverse engineering our technology. The warships, they're built from the wreckage of the alien fleets we destroyed long ago. They've been taking our most advanced ships, dissecting them and learning from them, adapting our greatest designs into something more deadly. And they didn't stop there." The Council's eyes widened in horror. What they had thought were mere battleships were, in fact, human-made death machines constructed from alien technology that had been discarded, forgotten. Earth's ingenuity was a force unto itself, a perfect blend of alien science and human creativity. But that was not the end of the story. The Terran warships had something far more dangerous, an ancient, forgotten technology that had been buried with the old race. A power so ancient, so potent, that the galaxy's greatest minds could not even begin to comprehend it. "Is that what they've done?" the insectoid leader murmured. "They've combined alien technology with something else, something far worse. We never should have pushed them to this point." The red-skinned leader's mind raced. The warships were no longer just a tactical threat. They were a symbol of something much deeper. Earth had discovered a long-lost power, one that could reshape the galaxy, and humanity wasn't interested in using it for peace. They were using it to fight back, to take what they had been denied for so long. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared across the command center, breaking the Council's stunned silence. A new signal had arrived, an encrypted message that bypassed all of the galaxy's communication systems. The red-skinned leader grabbed the transmission controls and immediately began decoding the message. When it appeared on the screen, it was chilling. "To the Galactic Council, you have underestimated us for far too long. Earth's strength is no longer a secret. We have reclaimed our place in the galaxy, and we will no longer bow to your will. This is our warning. Earth will not be exiled. We will not be controlled. Our warships are but a fraction of what we can achieve, and we're only just beginning." The message was signed with a single, unmistakable symbol. The mark of the ancient race that had helped humanity rise to power. The Council was silent, the weight of this revelation sinking in. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for control, armed with a power that could potentially dominate the galaxy. The Terran warships weren't just symbols of Earth's strength. They were the vanguard of a revolution that would change the entire galaxy. The red-skinned leader felt his stomach twist in fear. "We are facing something we can't fight," he muttered. "The humans have weapons we don't understand, and they've only just begun." As the alien fleet scrambled to regroup, a new report flashed on the screens. A signal from the far reaches of space, a new Terran fleet gathering, larger and more powerful than anything seen before. Earth had just revealed its true strength, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The battle was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning, and humanity's warships were only a taste of what Earth could unleash. The silence in the council chamber was suffocating. The red-skinned leader stared at the screen, watching the last remnants of the alien fleets retreating into the depths of space, battered and broken. The once mighty fleets of the galaxy, which had been hailed as the ultimate forces of destruction, were now a scattered, disorganized mess. The Council's greatest fear had become a brutal reality. Humanity, the planet they had once dismissed as weak and insignificant, was now the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. But what the Council didn't understand was that Earth's rise wasn't just about revenge or survival. It was part of a much grander plan, one that humanity had been quietly working toward for decades. While the galaxy had laughed and underestimated them, humanity had been quietly building a force capable of taking on the entire universe. They were no longer the underdogs. They were the masters of their own destiny. On Earth's warship, a group of high-ranking human commanders huddled around a holographic display analyzing the situation. The Terran warship had obliterated the alien fleets in a matter of hours. The time for defense had passed. Now humanity's next step was to claim what was rightfully theirs. "Report," Commander Rachel Miller, a seasoned leader in Earth's military, said, her voice calm but filled with a sharp edge. She stood at the center of the strategy room, watching as a detailed map of the galaxy was displayed above the table. A young officer tapped on the holographic display, sending the galaxy map into focus. "We've successfully destroyed or scattered 60% of the enemy fleet. The remaining forces are regrouping near the Caudrian Expanse." We have an opportunity to strike at the Council's central hubs, but it'll require full coordination with the fleet." Miller nodded. She had known this moment was coming, but it still felt surreal. Humanity had risen from nothing to become the galaxy's new dominant force. Their warships, designed using alien technology, enhanced with Earth's own innovations, were unstoppable. The Council's defenses were in ruins, and the alien species who had once ruled the stars were now scrambling to survive. "We can't wait for them to regroup," Miller said, her voice low but firm. "We strike now. Full-scale offensive. We take the capital." The officers around her nodded. This was it, the final push. The Council had been given the chance to peacefully exile humanity, but they had chosen war. Now it was time to show them what that decision had cost. On the opposite side of the command room, an officer called out, "Commander Miller, there's a new transmission from the fleet." "It's encrypted." Miller's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." The screen flickered and a new message appeared. It was from the human fleet leader, Admiral James Gregory, who commanded the bulk of Earth's military forces in space. "Commander Miller," the message began, his voice calm but urgent. "I've just received a report from our scouts. The Council is not as disorganized as we thought. They're preparing a counterattack. The largest fleet in the galaxy, the Omni's fleet, has been activated. It's on its way to intercept us, and we estimate they'll arrive in 2 days." The room fell silent. The Omni's fleet was one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy, made up of a dozen massive ships, each more powerful than anything humanity had yet encountered. The Council had been holding this fleet in reserve, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now that moment had come. "We can't afford to wait for them to reach us," Miller said quickly, a new fire burning in her eyes. "Prepare the fleet for battle. We'll intercept them before they can even get close to our forces. It's time we show the galaxy just how far we've come." As she spoke, the officers at the command table quickly began their preparations, setting the fleet into motion. The time for defense was over. Now Earth was taking the fight to the Council. Meanwhile, on the galactic capital planet, the leaders of the alien species watched helplessly as humanity's warships continued their relentless assault. The shock of the previous battles had left them in disarray. They had expected humanity to falter, to retreat in fear. But the Terran warships had done the exact opposite. They had grown bolder, more aggressive, and their attacks were becoming more calculated with every passing hour. "We need a countermeasure," the insectoid leader hissed, his voice sharp with anxiety. "Our fleets are no match for them. We need reinforcements, something more powerful than anything we've sent so far." The red-skinned leader paced back and forth, his face twisted in anger. "It's too late for reinforcements. We've already sent our best ships into the fight. We can't risk losing anymore." But it wasn't just about losing ships, it was about losing control of the galaxy. Earth's warships were systematically dismantling everything the Council had spent centuries building. And now, humanity was preparing for a full-scale invasion. The alien fleets, battered and broken, had already retreated to defensive positions near the galactic capital. They were preparing for the inevitable, the moment when humanity would push past the last of their defenses and claim the throne of the galaxy. The Council could do little more than watch as Earth's warships, seemingly unstoppable, grew closer and closer to the capital. "We've failed," the red-skinned leader whispered, his voice filled with bitterness. "We thought we were gods among the stars, but we were wrong. The humans are coming." As the human fleet, now fully mobilized, prepared for their final assault on the Council's capital, a new transmission came through, one that was more terrifying than any before. It was from Earth's warships, but this time the message wasn't a declaration of war. It was a warning. "We're not here to negotiate. You've had your chance. This is the last time we'll ask. Surrender now, or face complete destruction." The message echoed across the galaxy, the weight of its finality reverberating in the hearts of every alien species that had once held power. Earth was no longer playing by anyone's rules. This was humanity's galaxy now, And the galaxy had no choice but to watch as humanity prepared to take it. The galaxy was on the edge of chaos. Earth's warships had already torn through the heart of the Council's defense, shattering everything the alien species had built for millennia. With the Omni's fleet now on the move, a final confrontation was inevitable. The Council had made its final decision. It would not surrender. But the question remained, could they stop humanity's unstoppable advance? As the human fleet neared the capital planet, the red-skinned leader and the rest of the Council's representatives gathered in the now battered command center. The screens around them flickered, with reports of massive human ships closing in on their final destination. There was no turning back. "Where is the Omni's fleet?" The insectoid leader hissed, his antennae twitching with anxiety. "We don't have time to lose." "They're on their way," the red-skinned leader answered tersely, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. "But by the time they arrive, the human fleet will have already reached the capital. We need to prepare for the worst." On Earth's warships, the human commanders were preparing for the final phase of their invasion. Commander Rachel Miller stood at the center of the operations room, looking out at the immense holographic map of the Council's capital. The massive city, gleaming with artificial suns and protected by advanced shields, seemed like an impenetrable fortress. But Miller knew better. She knew that no shield, no matter how powerful, could stop what Earth was about to unleash. "Everything is in place," Miller said, her voice calm but resolute. "We strike the heart of their defenses. We make them understand that this is the end of their rule." Her words echoed in the room, and the officers around her nodded, their faces grim but determined. Earth had already proven its power. Now they would prove their resolve. The Omni's fleet, the largest and most advanced fleet in the galaxy, was nearly at full strength. The ships, each more massive and heavily armed than any Terran warship, sailed through the blackness of space toward Earth's forces. The alien commanders at the helm of the fleet were some of the most experienced in the galaxy, trained to deal with the most dangerous threats. But no amount of training could prepare them for what they were about to face. Admiral James Gregory, commanding the human fleet, looked out over the vast expanse of stars. His eyes were focused on the incoming Omni's fleet. The alien ships were massive, but Gregory wasn't worried. Humanity's strategy had always been to outthink and outmaneuver the enemy, and that's exactly what they planned to do now. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Initiate Phase 2. With a simple command, the human fleet split into several smaller, highly coordinated groups. They moved with perfect precision, faster than the Omni's fleet could react. The alien commanders, once confident in their overwhelming strength, watched in horror as the human fleet outpaced them, setting the stage for a devastating strike. The Omni's fleet was powerful, but it was clumsy. Its massive ships couldn't match the agility of the Terran warships, which darted in and out of the fleet, launching precise attacks on weak points in the alien ships' hulls. The first volley from the Terran fleet hit with brutal force, causing explosions to erupt across the Omni's ships, tearing them apart like paper. But the Terran fleet wasn't finished yet. The next wave of attacks came, this time targeting the Omni's fleet's command ship, the heart of their military might. The red-skinned leader watched in disbelief as one of the largest ships in the Omni's fleet was obliterated in a single shot. The force of the blast sent shockwaves rippling through space, causing smaller ships to be pulled into the blast radius. The once proud fleet, which had been considered unstoppable, was now a fraction of its original strength. They're too fast," the insectoid leader muttered. "We can't catch them. We can't stop them." Back on Earth's warships, Commander Miller watched the destruction unfold on the screens before her. The Omni's fleet was in full retreat, unable to withstand the precision and speed of humanity's assault. The Terran ships, though smaller in number, had already proven that they were more than a match for even the largest and most advanced fleets. But the real challenge was just beginning. The Council's capital planet, though vulnerable, still had its defenses. The shields were powerful, and the planet was protected by layers of security that had been designed to keep even the most advanced ships at bay. The Terran fleet would need to disable those defenses before they could land on the surface and claim victory. "Phase 3, Miller said, a determined look in her eyes. "We take down the shield." The Terran warships aligned themselves for their final assault. With a single, coordinated effort, they launched a concentrated barrage of energy blasts at the heart of the capital planet's shields. The first strike sent ripples through the defensive layer, causing the shields to flicker and fade. A second volley followed, this time stronger, more focused. The shields began to crack, and with each passing second, the capital planet grew more vulnerable. As the last of the defenses fell, the city below shuddered, and the atmosphere began to churn. The Council's capital, which had once stood as a symbol of power and control, was now wide open to attack. Just as the human fleet prepared to land and take the capital, a final, unexpected transmission came through the communication channels, a warning from one of the last remaining alien fleets. The message was simple, but its impact was immediate. "The Council has one last weapon. You've only seen the beginning of our retaliation." Before Miller could process the message, a new presence appeared on the galaxy's radar, a fleet of unknown ships, larger than any Terran warship emerging from the shadows. The galaxy's last hope was about to strike back, and humanity's moment of triumph was in jeopardy. Would Earth's victory be claimed, or would the galaxy's last defense prove to be more powerful than expected? The battle was not over. In fact, the most dangerous fight was just beginning. The words, "one last weapon," echoed in Commander Rachel Miller's mind as she stood in the command center, her face hardening with determination. The Terran fleet had already dealt a crushing blow to the Omni's fleet, shattered the Council's defenses, and breached the capital planet's shields. The galaxy had already seen humanity's might. But now, a new, unexpected threat had appeared, and it had come from the depths of the unknown. The screen in front of Miller flickered, showing a fleet of massive ships, larger and more imposing than anything the Council had ever sent to the front lines. These ships were unlike anything the Terran fleet had encountered. Their design was unfamiliar, sleek, black and angular, exuding an almost unnatural aura. The ships seemed to appear out of nowhere, emerging from deep space, and they were headed straight for Earth's warships. "Status on the incoming fleet?" Miller demanded, her voice sharp and commanding. "Unknown ships, Commander," Lieutenant Johnson reported, his voice filled with confusion. "They're massive, larger than our warships, and their energy readings are off the charts. We've never seen anything like this." Miller's mind raced. She had anticipated the Council's final move, but this was something different. These ships weren't from the galaxy's known species, and their technology wasn't anything Earth had studied or fought against before. She couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was hiding something far older, far more dangerous than they had realized. A chilling message suddenly flashed across the communications console. It wasn't from the unknown fleet, but from the Council's remaining leaders, who had retreated to a hidden fortress beyond the galaxy's edge. "The last weapon is here," the message began, the voice trembling with both fear and awe. "The Forgotten Fleet has been awakened. It is not a fleet of warships, but of annihilation. You have underestimated us all." Miller narrowed her eyes. The Forgotten Fleet. The name sent a wave of unease through her. She'd never heard of it. The Council had kept this secret hidden, even from their own allies. No one had known that such a fleet existed, let alone that it could be activated. "Admiral Gregory," she said, her voice suddenly cold. "Prepare the fleet. Whatever this new threat is, we will face it head-on. We've come this far. We're not backing down now." As the Terran fleet readied itself for battle, the alien ships began to take position. The ships in the Forgotten Fleet were enormous, dwarfing even Earth's most advanced warships. Their dark, sleek exteriors reflected no light, absorbing it instead, giving them a ghostly appearance against the backdrop of space. The energy readings coming from the ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever detected. These weren't just warships, they were weapons of mass destruction, each one capable of erasing entire fleets in seconds. The ships aligned in a perfect formation, and without warning they fired. A single burst of energy erupted from the lead vessel, a beam of pure destructive force, brighter than the stars themselves. The beam shot across the void and slammed into the nearest Terran warship, splitting it in two. The ship didn't even have time to react before it was vaporized. The shockwave from the blast sent the surrounding ships reeling, their shields flickering, struggling to hold against the tremendous force. "We're not going to last long against this," one of the officers yelled, panic creeping into his voice. Miller clenched her fists. "All units return fire. We can't let them break our lines." The Terran fleet responded with all the firepower it had left. But as they fired, the alien ships absorbed the blasts without even flinching. The energy they released was overwhelming, tearing through the human fleet's defenses as if they were nothing more than paper. The Forgotten Fleet wasn't just strong, it was unstoppable. The battle raged on, but it was clear that humanity was outmatched. The unknown fleet's weapons continued to devastate everything in their path. One by one, the human warships fell. The fear that had been creeping in since the arrival of the unknown fleet turned into stark reality. The Terran forces had never faced anything like this before. As the last Terran ships fought valiantly against the onslaught, Miller realized that victory was slipping from their grasp. She knew that the battle could not be won with brute force alone. There had to be another way, a way to stop the Forgotten Fleet before it wiped out everything humanity had fought for. "Admiral Gregory," Miller said, her voice calm but filled with a determination that could not be ignored. "I need the reserve fleet ready to deploy. We're going to need every ship we have left. Get them to the front line now." Gregory's face was set in a hard line. "Yes, Commander. We'll push them back. We still have a chance." But Miller knew the truth. A chance was all they had left. The Forgotten Fleet had come out of nowhere, and its power seemed to know no limits. The Council had kept this fleet hidden for a reason. It wasn't just an army of warships. It was an entire fleet designed to destroy everything in its path. And it had been unleashed at the most critical moment. As the battle reached its climax, the ground beneath them seemed to tremble. The final weapon wasn't just an overwhelming force. It was an ancient power, one that even the galaxy's most powerful empires had long since forgotten. The very presence of the Forgotten Fleet in the galaxy signaled that the stakes had been raised higher than anyone could have predicted. The galaxy was no longer a place of peace. It had become a battlefield where only the strongest would survive. The red-skinned leader's voice echoed in the Terran fleet's communications, his words chilling. "This is the final warning. Surrender now, or the galaxy will burn. You've seen what we can do. You've seen our power. And now you'll see what happens when we unleash everything we've hidden." Miller's eyes narrowed. The fight wasn't over. The war had only just begun, and this time humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for control of the galaxy.